Hey y'all, it's Megan here, and I'm back with a few tips for technical communication as you get started on your projects and writing reports. In this video, we'll cover giving good feedback for peer review, getting started with writing your intro and methods sections, evaluating sources for credibility, and writing an impersonal style. Tip number one is about peer review. Let's discuss what good, useful feedback looks like. When giving feedback to your classmates, keep the following in mind. Use the rubric and class materials to guide your feedback. What has your instructor emphasized that you should include in your projects, in your feedback, in your reports? Then be sure to mix both criticism and praise. Too much negativity can demotivate and frustrate your classmates, but constructive feedback can push us to improve. Remember that you can also ask questions to help point out areas that may seem unclear. Then, to ensure that your feedback is specific, consider describing, evaluating, and then suggesting a way to improve. For example, you could say something like, I see that you included X and Z, but remember that we're supposed to include Y as well. Consider revising that paragraph to include Z and give a more complete picture. In tip number two, we'll look at the intro and methods sections of your report. In the intro, remember that the purpose is to provide the motivation for the study. Why are you doing it? Define the need, problem, or question that you're addressing. Then describe the related work on your topic to build credibility and relevancy. Be sure to clearly state your project goal and state measurements and calculations that you'll perform. As you're getting started writing this section, here are some writer's blocks questions that you can consider as you get going. What need does this work address? Why should people care? Have others done work that is pertinent to our work or project? What problem does this work solve? Question, does it address? What measurements and analysis steps did we take to solve the problem? And what constraints will you be working within? In your methods section, remember that in this part, you are describing the instruments you used or will use to collect data, and be sure to refer to your instruments correctly. So there are a couple of recommendations there. With commercial instruments, you're listing the manufacturer and model number. Non-commercial, you're listing functional description with critical specifications. Then describe what particular measurements you'll make and how you recorded and preserved your data for later. Again, if you're having trouble getting started on this section, some writer's block questions to consider. What instruments were used for data collection? What measurements were obtained? And where was the data stored? On to tip number three. The next tip I have is finding credible sources using the CRAAP or CRAP test. With the CRAP test, you can evaluate sources that you find to help ensure they are credible. We talked about finding sources through databases. So with this tool, you can help evaluate any sources that you're not sure about. So the C in this acronym stands for currency. When was the source published? Check for copyright, patent dates, editions, etc. So you're thinking about how current is that information that you want to use in your report. The R stands for relevance. How well does the info relate to your project? Who is the audience? So who is that source written for, and how well does it fit into what you are trying to do within your project? A is authority. So you're thinking about who is the author and are they qualified to write on this topic? Who are they and what are their credentials? A is for accuracy. How truthful is the information? What evidence is provided? Has it been reviewed by other experts within the field or editors of a journal? And is it free from bias? And then the last letter, P, is for purpose. So why was it written or created? Was it written to inform? Was it written to persuade or entertain? and then looking at whether the information is fact or opinion within it. All right, and my last tip for you is a continuation of the personal style that we briefly touched on in class. So, if you're trying to consider, should we say we tested this device or the device was tested, which one would sound better within your technical reports? So remember that personal style is supposed to be objective and neutral. And we do this by removing the focus from the person or people doing the action and putting the focus on the processes, data, and outcomes. To do this, you can consider using action verbs, precise modifiers, and the passive voice. Also, you want to ensure that you're removing any emotions by using precise and concise language. Precise means being exact and accurate with your language, and then concise is referring to being short and to the point. So let's look at a little bit closer what precise and concise language looks like. Three tips for making your sentences precise are to make them quantifiable, to consider the level of certainty, and to make them specific. So here are a few examples. And the first one, quantifiable. If you say several holes were drilled in the plank, well, several isn't very specific. And so we can turn that into a quantifiable number by saying 3 holes were drilled in the plank 4 inches apart. With certainty, so level of certainty, we're talking about how certain are you, or can you say you are with your results that you found. So the test performed proved that the custom data structure does not have errors. You have to be careful with words like proved or guarantees, because that has a level of like 100% certainty. So think about the language you use there. Instead, you could say the test performed using the custom data structure did not encounter errors. And then lastly, specific. So the team determined that design A was the best. Okay, so using words like the best, you have to be careful with that. So instead, we could say design A completed the test successfully and used the lowest amount of energy. Again, you're being more specific here and making it more objective by not using the word best. All right, let's talk about making your sentences concise. So 3 things that you want to avoid is vague language, redundant language, and wordy language. So with vague language, here's an example. Basically, it was the offset battery that kind of made the AEV fall off the track. Okay, we have this word basically, which kind of makes it not as clear. And instead, we could say the offset battery made the AEV fall off the track. So again, more concise, not as wordy, and definitely more specific. Redundant language, so saying things like to completely eliminate confusion, we need to act on the suggestions that the supervisors offer us each and every time. So if we look at this sentence here, there are a couple of redundancies in there. We have completely and eliminate. We don't need both of those words. So we could say to eliminate confusion. And then in the last part there, we have each and every time. Again, that's redundancy. So we could shorten that to be just each time. And then, of course, thinking about wordiness, an example, ideally, it would be best to place the billing ticket just below the monitor and above the keyboard. Again, that's just kind of a long sentence. There are more words in there than we actually need. And so to be more concise, we could say place the billing ticket between the monitor and the keyboard. So really thinking about your sentences as you create them in your reports and making them specific and avoiding these 3 errors here. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you found these tips helpful, and happy technical communicating.